everyone, and welcome to the webinar. We are going to start in just a few minutes. We're going to give the stragglers a chance to join. While we wait, I would like to pose a fun question to the group just to get everyone's creative juices flowing. So our big question today is, would you rather go into the past to meet your ancestors or go into the future to meet your great-great-great-great-grandchildren? If you'd like to register an opinion, go ahead and click and submit that. And then we'll share the results. Is there anyone on the panel that would like to chime in with their perspective?
I can go.
Excellent.
If my audio is on, can you hear me okay?
Mm-hmm.
Fantastic. So I think going into the past I think it's more exciting because you get to sort of learn about how the family got to where it is, right? And I think there's so much you could learn. And I'm really more of the scholarly type where I'm always learning. So for me, going to the past would be the coolest thing because it'd be like Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, right? Just going back and taking all that knowledge and then coming back to where you are and saying, okay, now I'm going to have a better vision of where we want to be in the future. Or you can go to the future and see how you screwed up, or you can go to the past and learn how not to create a future that's screwed up. I don't know. Call me Marty McFly. I don't know. That's my 2 cents.
Steve, you totally took my win because I was just thinking Back to the Future. I mean, there's some advantages to going into the future, right? And then being able to come back to present day because there's some decisions we might make. But rather than going into the past and finding out why I am the way I am, going into the future to find out how I could affect change now to affect the future for my family, that might be an interesting take too.
Yeah, it'd be interesting.
Absolutely. George or Marissa, do you have a perspective you'd like to share?
I think I'll go to the future, and especially, go get some cool ideas, come and maybe implement here, be the innovator, get some cool ideas, be the one who creates something.
I want to be rich. I want to go to the future because I want to be rich. Nice.
Right. But I also share Steve's idea. Like, I'm also really interested in ancestors. Yeah. And who knows, when we talk about ancestors, how far do we go to the first human being? Like, is that how it's going to go? And then you learn actually how we got to here, where we are.
What's this tree? What's that apple? What's happening?
Yeah.
We must all be in marketing because we have so many perspectives, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely. I love it. Excellent. Well, let's see what the audience had to say. Wow. Okay. I don't know if it was the influence of the panel, but it looks like we've got a solid 2/3 of our attendees who would go into the past. I love that. That's great. Yes. Excellent. Well, thank you everyone so much for sharing your feedback with all of us. Before we dive in, it looks like everyone has joined in, so let's get started. Welcome to the first installment of Birdeye Reviews to Revenue Series, how to use feedback to grow your business. I'm your host and the head of product marketing here at Birdeye. My name is Rebecca Sprinzanatic, and I'm excited to facilitate today. Before we dive into panel introductions, I'll do a quick round of housekeeping just to get everyone oriented. In the top left corner, you should see me and our wonderful panel of speakers. To the right of us are the slides. And then below us, you will see a Q&A box. That's really important. That's where you get to submit your questions to our panel. And we are planning to leave a lot of time at the end for the panel to address that. So do not be shy. Chat in your questions at any time, and then we'll address them at the end. Next to the Q&A is the attendee chat. So feel free to use that to leave a comment, say hi, maybe let us know why you're interested in going back into the past to meet your ancestors. Then on the right-hand side of your screen at the top, you're going to see links to some additional resources. This is where you can download our Reviews to Revenue reference guide, which is fantastic. Our team just finished that up, and it breaks down everything that we're talking about today, and will give you a preview of some of the upcoming installments of our Masterclass series. You can also use that space to go ahead and register for the remaining webinars. There's a lot more interesting information we're going to cover, and you're going to meet some great guest speakers. So I highly encourage you to do that. Also, Feel free to follow us on LinkedIn so that you don't miss any of our live streams. We also interview a lot of our panel experts there on all things SEO, online reputation, and so much more. And then below that, you are going to see speaker bios. So please take a look. We have a very esteemed panel today. They all have incredible backgrounds, lots of knowledge to share. So please take a look and learn about these rock stars. So on that note, let's go ahead and get started introducing our panel. It is my pleasure to introduce our first guest of the day, Marissa Endy Van Kieri. Marissa is the marketing director for Sunburst Shutters and Windows, which is a company that manufactures and sells high-end window treatments that are designed to last a lifetime. They've been in business for 40 years, and they have over 35 locations across the U.S. Welcome, Marissa.
Thank you.
Next, Great. Next, I'd like to introduce George Gregorian. George is the marketing director for Sev Laser. Sev Laser is a medical spa that specializes in laser hair removal, laser skin tightening, dermal filters, and Botox. They've got 27 locations across the U.S. and have been a Birdeye customer for 3 years. Welcome, George.
Hello, thank you so much.
Please welcome Sean Young. Sean is the Director of Technology and Communications at The Glass Guru, which is a franchise that provides residential glass repair and installation services. They have been around since 2004, and they have 82 franchise locations across the U.S. and Canada. Welcome, Sean.
Thank you.
Great to have you here. And last but not least, please welcome Steve Wiedemann, the CEO and Senior Search Strategist at Wiedemann Consulting. Steve is a friend of the program. He's appeared on multiple Birdeye webinars, so he may be familiar to you. And he is our go-to expert on all things Google and SEO. He has helped countless businesses with their Google search strategies. He's the CEO and Senior Search Strategist at Wiedemann Consulting. He's an adjunct professor at UCSD and the author of SEO Strategy and Skills, a textbook that is used at universities across the U.S. Welcome, Steve.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Okay. Thank you all so much for being here. Let's just dive right in. Oh, and I'm sorry, everyone. Here was a little slide with everyone's lovely faces. Yeah, let's go ahead and dive in. So we're going to start with the million-dollar question that brought us all here, which is, how do reviews and online reputation impact your bottom line? So it goes without saying that they're a vital part of an online reputation strategy, but how specifically do we connect the dots between reputation and revenue? So we're going to put George on the spot first. Sev Laser operates in a highly competitive wellness industry. From your perspective, what impact have reviews had on your ability to attract new customers?
Well, we operate in a space that is medical, health, and beauty. And both topics together is something that people care a lot about it. You know, they don't want to make a mistake by choosing a wrong place to get the treatment. So these days, what do? We all rely on the reviews and testimonials to kind of get an idea of if this place is good enough, and then obviously if the brand is known. So we grew our history, the beginning of the companies, we grew really through social media, Instagram, where a lot of influencers were happily sharing about their experience at getting treatments at Sev Laser. So, and I consider those as testimonials, and testimonials are kind of considered as reviews too. You know, they don't become stars, but they are in a sense a review of some sort. So we grew through testimonials, and then when we were more we started growing as a chain. Obviously, we stepped into Google and Yelp and other platforms, and that's where we saw the reviews coming in and how the business actually started growing and growing with the help of reviews, where more people would know about us and would be able to find us. And basically through testimonials, through word of mouth, influencers, to testimonials, to reviews, that's how we really grew this into a chain across multiple states in the US.
That's excellent. Yeah, that's really interesting. It's all different ways, different channels for your customers to share their feedback with the world. That's excellent. So Marissa, Sunburst shutters and window fashions is a premium product, and I understand you have a lot of low-cost competitors. Do you hear from customers that they select you over low-cost competitors because of your reputation?
Yep, all the time. That's pretty much the day-to-day. Given that we are a niche product, we offer a niche product within a niche industry. Besides family, friends, and that awe-inspired neighbor, right? That's like, hey, I want shutters too. Those look great. Or, oh, I need window treatments. It's kind of like one of those snowball effects. But in this line of business, our audience is known to and has to put that extra time and effort into researching, because it is more of a lifetime. It is a lifetime product. Those who are not doing that much research, maybe they know they're not going to live in their home quite as long, or it's a rental, et cetera, et cetera. So when someone is ready to make that big purchase, in really any industry for that matter, that has that big price ticket, they're going to do a lot of research to know where they're going to get not so much bang for their buck, but where that service is in alignment with the product as well.
Excellent. I think service is going to be a theme we hear a lot about in this conversation. It's the core of your reputation. It's how you make people feel. So that's great. Those are some great insights. Let's talk about, so it's clear that reviews are important when consumers are making a decision during their research process. But it's also really important in determining how you show up online when they're starting their search in the first place. It has a big impact on Google rankings. So we're going to dive into that a little bit. And Sean, we're going to turn to you for a minute. My understanding from our past conversation is that Google is your top source of leads. Can you walk us through that a little bit and talk about the impact of reviews on your Google rankings?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, in the search space, Google is obviously the 8,000-pound gorilla, and that's the reason that we're a Google partner. We, in essence, act as the agency for our franchisees. So that's where we put a lot of our efforts. And they're increasingly important to our brand. In the research that we've done, some studies out there will say up to 96% of customers are actually looking at online reviews when they're looking to select a residential home services provider. We're endeavoring to bring traffic to the places where those reviews are up front and personal. I'd love to say that it was part of our grand plan. I can't really tell if it's chicken or the egg, right? These are our top sources of leads, and they happen to be places where we're actually syndicating reviews. Whether it's Google My Business, Yelp, and of course our consumer website, where we syndicate every review given from every provider on our site. When it comes to our top lead sources, the Google marketing platform drives the vast majority of our leads, with one interesting exception, and that's Yelp. So Google My Business, then Google Organic, Google Calls, then Yelp, and then Google Ads. And monetarily, Google Ads is where franchisees end up spending a lot of their money. We have to be there, whether it's overt marketing or neutralization, right? You've got to be there. But it's interesting that it doesn't bring the same kind of juice as the organic or the review traffic would. We make an overt promise about our service experience. We are finally at that point in our brand where we can start to in essence, sell that, because glass is glass. We're not going to be the low price leader. So it has to be about service. So we don't have any choice to continue to get better and more adept at navigating this landscape, and continue with this current trend of increasing our reviews, our ratings, and the overall response rates. We have to do better at getting even beyond the automation and responding directly to the reviews in a more human manner. As human as we think we've made our automated responses, we need more of that, and ultimately build customer trust and continue to drive our organic rankings.
That's excellent. Folks, attendees, I just want to remind you that you have an opportunity to chat in your questions to any of these panelists. So at the end of the webinar, if you have follow-up questions for Marissa, George, Sean, or Steve, please go ahead and get those queued up and sent in. Let's go back to George for a minute. So, you're a rapidly growing chain of local businesses. What have you seen with respect to reputation and search ranking?
It's very direct, and the way I notice it, especially there are locations that we opened like 10 years ago, and there are locations we just opened like a few months ago. And with the older locations, we have so many reviews with like really positive, like 4.7 or 4.8 rating. And you see that you're so above the competition that there is no way anyone's going to come close with that amount of reviews and that amount of and that high of a rating. So when you have high quantity of reviews and the rating itself is high, you automatically dominate that Google 3-pack. And I'm also noticing that when you dominate that Google 3-pack, usually pretty much as a rule of thumb, automatically your search, like organic Google search, the web page as well climbs up. It's sort of like a magnet, it pulls you. So, and then with newer locations, that's where we see like the work, you know, we need more reviews, we need to step up on it to really kind of come. At first you come close to the competitors, and then we know as the years go by, we usually will get more reviews, and that's how we kind of keep up with the competition too, and the rankings itself too.
Excellent. It's really fascinating that you're able to look at the impact by comparing locations that have been in place for years, and then those that are just established. That's great. Steve, you're our de facto SEO expert. What else is the data telling us about the impact of reviews?
You know, I'm actually reminded of a story in 2014. We were working with Meineke Car Care Centers, and it's been long enough now that I can say exactly how crazy and fun it was and tell this story. But I remember going through, you know, our normal SEO strategy, right, for local maps being very important to them for auto repair and oil change. And first, we started with platform to make sure all of their 800 or so or 900 or so locations were in a platform like Birdeye that could be, you know, a single source of truth for all the directories out there, and a place to manage all of our Google business and maps and navigation data. That was number one. We got that squared away. Two, we got our local pages optimized to make sure they were as helpful as possible with all the different attributes that somebody might need to look at for that location. Then we looked at the data, you know, visibility online by getting into other directories, into, you know, local directories, everywhere we could to make sure that Googlebot was finding our listing everywhere. You know, in local SEO, we tend to call it business citations, you know, name, address, phone number, and sometimes a link to the location page. And then the fourth part, of course, was ratings and reviews. And so we tried to, you know, implement some things that we'll talk about a little bit later that you know, hopefully would make a difference. And what was funny is I remember getting a phone call, and it was the Seattle offices. And I don't know if it's just because it's so cold and rainy in Seattle, but they are grumpy up there. And that manager called, and one of them, and he's like, my rankings are down, and I don't know what's going on. And no problem, we'll run a local audit and see, you know, if we can identify where the challenge is. Like, well, our data is right. We checked all the directories and all the databases and all the navigation engines. All of our information is correct. Local page is up. Nothing's broken. No 404. It's responsive. It's doing what it's supposed to do. Our business data visibility is doing better. We actually had, you know, 10 new citations this month. Everything's going great. Let's look at reviews. Oh, I see what's going on. He's getting fewer reviews, and the reviews that they are getting are all 1 and 2 stars. So there's obviously something going on at that location that's affecting reviews. And so what's happening is, even though all the other locations were moving up, and generally in the, you know, somewhere between the 1st to 3rd position in the maps, I think we might have even had 7-pack back then, we were doing really well, except for their location. Because it had such a low star rating on it, people just weren't clicking on the result. And Google eventually probably assumed, well, this isn't a very helpful result because nobody is clicking on them. And so we had to go back to them and try to explain, you know, hey, there could be a challenge because of the quality, quantity, and velocity of your ratings. Here's a guide that might help you to get better ratings. And of course, you know, some of those types of business owners, they just want revenue. They don't care about their customers, and it can get really ugly. So I think he ended up doing a bunch of rogue websites and crazy stuff that never really worked for him. But that was how we helped identify in a local audit, in a multi-location strategy, where that specific challenge was, and it ended up being around reviews. So we found, in doing a little bit of study with our clients, that reviews can impact revenue between 15 and 38%, because if nobody's clicking on your listing because you've got a low star rating and the reviews are negative, you know, no one's going to click on that listing, and it's going to reduce your revenue. However, when you go from, you know, 3 stars or 3.5 stars to 4.5 stars, suddenly you start to see this incline in online revenue that's respective to the traffic that you're getting. So there's absolutely a correlation, because it's going to affect your rankings, which affects your traffic, which eventually affects your revenue. So from the previous question, yes, there's a tie-in to the impact of negative reviews to revenue. And of course, there's a tie-in to ranking long-term, because the user behavior signals that search engines look for, are being affected.
That makes perfect sense. It's interesting. I love the story that you shared. Anecdotally, I'm taking a road trip this weekend, and my check oil or change oil light came on. So the very first thing I did was search for oil change near me, and I'm looking for the highest rated one, because and I'm reading the comments and I'm seeing what kind of places are pushy and what places are fast and delivering great service. So, it makes sense on the data perspective, and as consumers, it checks out as well. So
oh man, does it play into the local page optimization for organic, as we talked about a second ago. If we can use some of the native reviews that we receive from our clients to put those on our location pages, then the percentage of unique content that we have is significantly higher. Now we don't have to worry about Google looking at our location pages and saying, these are all the same page with just a different address. Now we've got unique content from people who've told us how their experience was, and keyword rich, content that they're providing to us. So there's that double benefit for sure.
Absolutely. Wow. That's fantastic. So we talked about the impact of reviews on how consumers make decisions, how you show up on Google. But, there's a component here of connecting with folks once they found you, and delivering an experience that converts them into customers. Marissa, I know you had some interesting insights to share, particularly about what you're doing with web chat to elevate your online experience. Can you share a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. Web chat. Oh, we love web chat. It has been such a game changer, especially for our line of business. Even though we operate across the country, again, being that niche product within a niche industry, we do run lean. So our office admin that day-to-day multitasking can become pretty intense. So web chat has allowed that convenience and that streamlined capability to keep customers engaged versus falling off. And what I mean by that is, let's say if one of our admin is either on the phone with another customer, or they're face-to-face with the client, or maybe it's an internal thing where they're dealing with an install, or whatever that case may be, web chat is just so easy to keep that conversation going. Like most of us guilty of today, right? Or any other day that you have your cell phone, you have all these messages coming in, but you're able to multitask and keep that engagement or whatever task it is that you're doing on track. So not having that before, I can't tell you enough how many people will leave a voicemail, right? So if we miss a call, we're missing a lead and the potential to convert that lead. So again, web chat has just been so beneficial, and that's really why we made the switch to Birdeye in the first place, was because of the web chat feature. Our stores love it. It's easy to use, and it just guarantees that not only just keeping the customer engaged, or it could even just be, someone who's just initially asking a question, and then all of a sudden, we're able to give them that one-on-one time to explore options or whatever it is that those specific questions entail. They can send photos through it as well. So it's been extremely helpful for us, because especially when we're talking about windows and window treatments, I have this type of a window, can you cover it? Or this part of my shutter is broken, can you come out and fix it? So it's just so turnkey and keeping that conversation alive and really nurturing it through the entire process. As well as it keeps all of those conversations live within the dashboard. So it's just a great back-end reference as well, to have those functionalities. We love it. It's awesome.
That's excellent.
I've seen a lot of clients move from their, I was going to say, I've seen a lot of clients move from the idea of using bots in their chat to going back to live chat with real people, simply because bots can be really frustrating to customers. So I don't know if that's helpful, but if you see a bot program, and we'll set up all these different replies and autos and I think it's great for, Google Action Center and Alexa skills and so forth. But I think for web chat, having a real person there makes such a difference. We've seen like a 300% improvement in conversion rate just adding chat alone. So it's definitely worth to test. If in the worst case, you just remove it, but stay away from the bots, because I hate when I get on a chat and it's a bot and I'm like, no, where's the phone number? I'm not doing this.
Yeah. On that note, it's really funny. Somebody just chatted in asking, is this a bot chat? No, it's not. We're real. It's us. We're here. I can't type and talk at the same time, but I would respond otherwise. So on that note, we had a question from Marissa here. So it says, are robo chats potentially too harmful from a UX standpoint? So I'm curious if you had any thoughts on that, or Steve or anyone else.
Yeah, so we do stay away from the robo chat, just because, again, if we were in a more generalized, I guess depending on the question, right? There is a time and place for robo, but in terms of, and it was mentioned about those keywords, right? The enrichment there, it totally crushes the experience when the customer experience, when someone is trying to find out specific information about something that could be very costly, right? And again, I'm speaking to our business. It totally defeats the purpose of even having a live chat, quote unquote, robo chat in place. It just, I mean, how many times, I'm sure all of us have experienced, even calling like a doctor's office or whatever, and they ask you to, press 1, 2, or 3. It's like, you really don't want to wait. You know exactly what your goal and why you contacted that business, and you want that response. So we stay away from it. And we've even stayed away from the robo reviews, the auto response reviews, review responses, right? When someone's giving a positive review and just saying, hey, thanks for utilizing December shutters. We are so glad to be a part of your home, right? We want to really touch base on who that customer is, how we help them, and really add to that experience, because again, there's the genuine side of it, but you already know that those reviews, they're syndicated and they're being seen by all of your prospects across the nation, the world, whatever. And I think, especially in today's world, it's not the typical advertising anymore where people are calling you because they saw you on TV. Everything is about reputation management and research, and what are other customers experiencing with this business, and how will my ROI, how can I maximize my ROI on the business I select based on the reviews. And we did have another, I don't want to go off too much off tangent, but somebody did ask, how do you respond to those fake reviews, right? I mean, a lot of us have seen the review bots out there, and I know Facebook is notorious for having these reviews that they give you a positive review, but it's like for some cryptocurrency or something like that. And I think that the biggest part of that is you should be able to just respond, right, and organically respond to what that customer is, or that review is what that review entails, right? Just because, again, people are watching you. They're seeing how you respond. How do you handle? There's going to be challenging times in any business, no matter what your ranking is. If you have a 4.9 or a 4.7, there's going to be those good days, bad days. And if you own up to it, I've seen it myself firsthand, where you're looking at a restaurant or whatever that business is, and if that owner owns up to it or responds and says, hey, we can't find your name in our database, can you elaborate a little bit more? When you see that engagement from the other side and then that customer does not respond, then you already know that this could be, a pushed, fake review. Bad review or a fake review, whatever. So I think the key is just to always stay engaged and sincerely engaged without having that those automated responses.
Absolutely. We're about to pivot to talk about the impact of a bad reputation. And there have been quite a few questions about how to respond to negative reviews. Marissa, we just got some great feedback from you on that. Are there any other panelists that want to chime in with their approach for addressing negative reviews?
Well, I definitely have a guide that I'll share. You can put the URL in the probably in the chat here in a couple of minutes, but it's a cool little guide that walks through. It's an aggregate of Yelp and Google and some of our own experience. So I think having that guide at least gives you something that you can distribute to the different locations, or if you're a single location, to keep at the front desk. As every morning when you get in, you start looking at your reviews, it gives you, a bit of a structure. So I'll definitely share that with everyone. Something else that's worked really well for us is, the idea of maybe having something on site, we were using this one idea where it was a share and a care card. That was kind of neat, because then you could have one card that was, hey, I know this customer just loves us. They had such a great experience. Give them a share card, and they go to a bit.ly URL, so it's associated with that location, and it basically takes them to a page where they can leave a review. Hopefully native review first, and then after they leave the review, say, great, would you be willing to share on one of these sites, whichever you use, Facebook or Yelp or Google. Then there's the care card. I think I really ticked off this customer. I think he's going to go back and leave me a negative review. Let me give him a care card, and the care card says, basically tell us, how we could do better. And here's, my manager's, special form or whatever. And here's his phone number, or her phone number. And so you have that on the card, and then go to that URL where you can lay out the red carpet, let them vent all they want to, and then afterwards offer them a coupon to go to a different location if you have multiple locations. And then the other part, of course, is having that phone number so that they can call and get their issue addressed with somebody who's above them, maybe even corporate if it was the location manager that ticked them off, or they don't have faith in that location manager's, whether they care or not. So the share and care cards were a great way to vet, and we saw a reduction of, I think, somewhere close to 25% of negative reviews by offering that sort of idea. And you can come up with your own or draw inspiration from it, but having a guide is kind of part one. Part two is having that share and care card, which, by the way, also reminds the folks that are on site that reviews are important, or we wouldn't have these things. So there's this, why are we doing this? Oh, reviews must be kind of a big deal, right? So at least it gets it in their head and gets them thinking about it every day.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
I love that. George, I was curious, when you talk about the impact of bad reputation, I think you had an interesting story to share from your past. What do you think?
Yeah. So when I just started working with SevLaser, as soon as I stepped, I noticed that as far as reputation goes, I don't have a lot of work to do, and I was relieved. It's check mark. Okay, let me move on to the next things. But prior to joining SevLaser, I've been working as an independent marketing consultant, and not only just for reputation, all things basically 360-degree marketing. So and always in the healthcare, medical, aesthetic, beauty segments. So I've dealt with a lot of companies where they needed to generate more reviews. Most of my clients have always had good reputation, and it was just a matter of encouraging more reviews. So created all sorts of systems and trainings how to ask for reviews, when's that sweet spot and stuff. But particularly one of my clients once was a chain of med spas, again, but with 5 locations across LA. And their review rating was around 3.5 average of, let's say, all of them together. And my main task from day one was, please help us with reputation. And I cannot tell you how many things I tried. It's encouraging more reviews to try to get positive reviews, and then 1 star and it just drops again. Okay, this is not working clearly. Okay, let's start. Well, what else can we do? We hired a reputation company that had a workflow where they would report these negative reviews, and they knew a workflow through legal system that they could get it removed. And some cases that they did it actually too. But then again, you get another negative review. So I went to the drawing board. Okay, let's try training, employee training. And then just long story short, I got to the point where I understood that most of these employees know how to treat customers in the right way. They're just not motivated enough. We all live in a place and society where we all know ourselves what's a good service and a bad service. And then if an employee is not delivering that good service, it's usually something is wrong in the company policy, HR, mission, vision, values, management, whatever. It's just more of a corporate problem usually. Turns out to be, and I understood they were like getting paid like minimum wage, so I did not blame them. I could totally understand, you know. So, and that was kind of the lesson for me, that it's really not easy to help a company like improve their reputation if they're not ready to really look at their entire like organization structure, their HR policies, and all of that. Because reputation, that it's the last part, and whatever services we create and systems we create to generate more reviews, if that top part is broken, it's just going down the same way. So that was kind of my lesson. I learned that I'm not gonna like work with a company like that kind of ever again, pretty much. It's really hard to work.
Yeah, that's a great takeaway.
It just makes my job harder, and you know, you're fighting against like basically crushing waves. You generate 5 great 5-star reviews, and then the value of one-star review is so much higher than 5-star. Like it just like drags your like review rating so much deeper down than like those 5-star reviews did take you up.
Yep, absolutely. That's great. It's so true. Steve, do you have data to share about the cost of an online reputation? And with that, I wanted to share, we had a question that was chatted at, referencing your prior comments. It said, if bad reviews impacted a company like Meineke 15 to 30%, would you expect an inverse impact for positive reviews?
100%.
So
100%. Yeah. And I think anyone doing digital marketing can see the data. They can see when they're getting reviews and seeing how suddenly they're showing up more in their local service ads. They can see that they're appearing in Google Maps more often. One of many focal points that you can pay attention to in your Google business profile is, of course, the review reputation side. And so if you're not doing some testing to see correlations, that review guide I shared, or going to share, has a little tracker template that you could use just as a way for you to say, okay, day 1, we're at this rating and have this many reviews. Let's do some work this month and see if we notice a difference. And then the following month, I mean, when we did our testing, we saw huge differences. As I mentioned, that range is like 15 to 38% more revenue that you could see if you take the time to really focus on your ratings and your reviews. So for sure, I can't tell you how important it plays into overall SEO keyword ranking, to traffic, to click-through rate. Even if we're there and we're bragging about being number 1, if no one's clicking on us, we're not getting the maximum traffic we could get. So we got to get that 5-star rating, or as close to the best rating as we can based on what's normal for our industry. Sure.
So any advice for how to remove fake 1-star reviews?
Yeah, it's a tough one. Go ahead. I'll let you go first.
Yeah, I was just going to say, usually if you have a way to just respond and try to get in contact with the person, don't kind of argue in the comment section. Just try to be like, hey, this is our phone numbers. Or if you know the customer already, just try to get in touch somehow and win over, by sweetness and kindness and offering whatever in return, accepting if that was the company mistake, like really accepting and apologizing. That's kind of step 1. A lot of times that's what I've worked with a couple of reputation agencies that, like I said, had a system in place, especially for reviews that just put 1 star and they don't put any comment. Usually these are suspicious, and usually these are kind of more or less easier to get removed through like more legal proceedings or like reporting and things like that.
Flagging the review, right? Just flag it first.
Yeah.
As soon as you flag it, it's a starting point.
See what happens. Yeah. Go ahead, Steve. I think you had a couple of points.
That's all I was saying. Is it's like a very first step is to, when you start seeing that, is just start flagging them. Google's paying attention. They know there's a lot of weird extortion things happening right now and negative SEO things and anything businesses can do rather than make their business better. Like, well, it's cheaper if I hire someone offshore to hurt my competitors than it is for me to spend a day trying to write a page of content to make my site more helpful.
True.
I don't know why. It's lazy, it's complacent, it's unethical, but it's a business world, and sometimes business crosses lines, and We as marketers try to stay ethical as best we can. But unfortunately, business owners don't have that same mindset. For them, it's, I gotta, strongest survives. And sometimes, if we don't have the capabilities to be better, then we're going to hurt our competition. So when that does happen, flag them like crazy and when you see them, and always respond to them. Hey, I noticed you left a 1-star review. Could you please share some context? Nothing happens. Google sees nothing happens. Eventually that little review goes away, or that rating goes away.
And you know what, if I can add to that, right, focusing on the positives, that's when it's critical to work with your teams internally to really try to get those positive reviews, because you can kind of flush out the negative ones. And I think we all, and maybe, just generally speaking, the educated mindset, if they see a 1-star review and no comment behind it, I think we all just kind of know, like, okay, something's funky here. And if the good outweighs the bad, I think that story tells all. So really working with your teams to say, okay, you know what, we really gotta, I think that's why it's so key to stay consistent. And I think that's why Birdeye makes that process so easy, because it's just streamlined housekeeping to say, hey, we got to reach out to our customer base. Let's pump out a little bit more reviews this week so we can continue to get those positive reviews and along with those keywords, right? So if you kind of run into a hiccup and you're focusing on, oh my gosh, this negative review, what's going to happen? That's when you say, we really got to amp up and keep those positive reviews coming, because we know we're better than that.
Right.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
This is such a great discussion. I love it. In a moment, we're going to move on to talk about best practices for creating a superior online reputation. But before we do that, I wanted to ask Steve, do you have any data that would tell us the impact of your reputation dropping by, let's say, a full star, like 4 to 3?
Sure. Yeah. And I don't know if we put a slide together on this one or not too, but I can, after the event, I'll try to share whatever new stuff that we have. We were looking at the all of our clients kind of across the board and seeing where some of the patterns and themes were happening. And obviously locations that had high churn rates for whatever reason sometimes got lower reviews, and we wanted to know what was the impact of that. And as I mentioned, from a reputation or from a revenue standpoint, we saw revenue drop between that 15 to 38%. And why the 15 is I think some people are just like, I don't care if it's 3 stars. I'm hungry and all the other places around me are awful. So I'm just going to go with this place, even though their customer service is awful. The 38% are just like, I have other options and I'm going to use them. So I think that's, again, the range. And as we know, when we look at our Google Analytics or, whatever we happen to be using for web analytics, you'll notice if you are a location or multi-location brand, that it's a 50-50 on what comes in from organic search and what comes in from maps. And how of course, is you add some little parameters to the maps website address so that, you can segment it in your Google Analytics. And when you do that, you'll see 50% of your traffic's coming from maps. And that means that if you've got a low star rating in Google Maps, no one's going to click on that listing. So, you might be lucky and they might scroll past the maps and they'll click on your organic result, but not if they've already viewed you in the maps and saw that you had a low rating. So I think that impact's, super important. The data that we've seen, like I mentioned, comes down to the bottom line. Traffic-wise, it's such a variable because of what everyone's intent is. But from a revenue standpoint, again, 15 to 38% impact.
Wow, that's fascinating. I love that you've got the numbers. So
and there's
we know
my
that
share and
Google...
care cards on the slide.
There we go. Okay. So we know that Google loves to rank businesses that they trust at the top of the search results. Steve, what are some ways that businesses could improve and develop trust with Google?
Of course. And we'd already talked about that guide. That guide does give some really good recommendations that come directly from Google and from Yelp. And we've talked about it already several times on the event so far, is always responding to everything. Thanks for such an amazing review. We value you. We appreciate you. You're amazing. You totally made our day. We love you. Wow, that's I'm really sorry you had such a poor experience. And that seems really, not typical of our location. I'd love to learn more about what happened. Could you please call our restaurant and ask for Joe? Right? I think just having some sincerity and authenticity, avoiding getting a list of responses, of canned responses, and handing it off to a vendor, because you'll start to read through the reviews and the responses, and you're like, wow, they're responding the same way to everyone. Sorry you had a poor experience, please call customer service. Sorry you had a poor experience, please call. It's like so redundant, and it's so impersonal to somebody who's reading the reviews. So make it personal, and use the person's name if it's there. Be sincere, and make every response completely different. The negative review, we talked about the flagging it first. Get that review flagged so that Google knows about it. Respond to it, even though it might not even have a review behind it. Just say, hey, we're sorry, could you give us more context? The share and care cards I mentioned earlier, you could do all sorts of interesting things with that too. You don't have to use the cards. I saw a restaurant use jars. They said I had a good, a poor, okay, and a good experience. And you see somebody put one of the little wooden coins that you give them into those jars before they leave, and then that's your point to flank them at the door and say, hey, I saw you put a coin in the such and such jar. I want to learn more about how I can make it better when the next time you come in. I think it's a great way to give you a chance to respond before they go online and respond in a way that's not going to help you. And then that manual tracking, if you don't have a mechanism in place, there is something in the link that I'm sharing, the bit.ly, that actually gives you a way. And what we do is we basically create a Google Sheet as a simple way to do it. If you want to do it manually, create a Google Sheet and then create a row for every place that people are leaving reviews about your business. And that's going to vary based on business type. So if you're a lawyer, it's going to be lawyers.com and Avo and Justia and so forth. If you're in health and medical, it's going to be health grades and so forth. You want to have a row for each one of those, and then have a column. And every week or every month, depending on how much bandwidth and resources you have, keep track. What's our average rating? What is our pace? How many are we getting per month? And then take those and create a column at the end and have some KPI goals. Our goal is to get to a pace of 20 reviews a month and to get to 4.3. And then you look back and you do the little math with another column, and you're like, where are we at right now? We're at 4.1. We're getting close, but our average is getting up there. We're at 18, so we're almost at 20. So it's a great way to hold the team accountable and everyone to hold each other accountable to the success of our online reputation by just using a simple little Google Sheet. So that template's in the bit.ly I've shared as well.
Thank you. We haven't heard from Sean in a little bit. I would love to hear
at least the quiet
your
one.
perspective because, Glass Guru has a great reputation. So what are your tips?
Well, it's funny. It is the first time anyone called me quiet in a while. I've just been over here patiently waiting. I do have to say that Steve's guide is awesome. Had an opportunity to kind of peruse it because we're in the process of putting together our own. Good reviews and appropriate responses are both important to building Google ranking and customer trust. As we've got all the empirical evidence in front of us here, SEO experts and otherwise. We're currently formalizing our SOPs as we continue to coach our franchisees more and more. I still haven't solved that answer where the franchisor utters it and everybody complies. It doesn't work that way in franchising, unfortunately. But we're really trying to get this reputation guide internally. It's the language of service because it's more than just reviews. It's about using the language of a service-led organization throughout the life of a job, from customer acquisition to the ongoing follow-up and repeat customer marketing that we're going to do after the fact. It has to permeate all of that. Every interaction with the customer is an opportunity to serve, even if we're responding to negative reviews. You're going to get negative reviews. So the best thing you can do is neutralize them. Be empathetic. And again, find a way to serve. There's something that went wrong here, and we be genuine and empathetic to the customer's plight, and be open to continued communications to see if we can solve it. And it doesn't hurt to make those very respectful communications public, right? Because people are going to see that, and people understand. Sometimes good companies get bad reviews. Oh, this is how they responded. I don't judge my loyalty to a brand by having a brand that's awesome all the time. My loyalty personally to brands are brands that every once in a while they screw up. How did they deal with their mistake? The difference between good and great is the quality of your mistakes. Not my quote, but it's a great one. You have to respond to negative reviews 100% of the time. Don't rely on the bot. We have a number of automations, but I try to put 7 or 8 different kinds of automations that are randomized that go out there that leave it open for a real human being to have more communications with that customer at the end. So our response rates have gone up really, really high because of the automations, but we're now also seeing multiple threads even with good reviews, which is great. Fake reviews, you got to publish your due diligence. Well, I'm sorry, Mr. Smith, we've checked our system and we don't seem to see you in our customer list. Can you give me an invoice that we work with you on? We'd really like to rectify the issue, right? And provide opportunity for them to interact with us. Maybe they really are a customer, but that email address or whatever else just didn't jive, right? But maybe it is a fake review. And of course, at the end of the day, flag it, right? That's typically what we do with the franchisor. For our franchisees, they typically kick it up the chain so they don't have to do it, and we'll do it for them. If throughout your service experience you create raving fans, they want to share their experience. They want to. We are focusing primarily right now, in addition to all the automations, on our post-job follow-up. A real person picking up the phone, calling the customer after the completion of the job, and in addition to all these great technological tools we have, humanizing that interaction. Did we exceed the customer's expectation? And if not, how come? Is there anything we can do to make it better? Is there anything the customer needs to know about the care and feeding of the products they receive from us, right? Long-term care, when should we have us come back out to take a look at it? What happens if it starts being suboptimal in terms of performance? You want to educate the customer in that, make sure that they understand that we care. And then don't be afraid to ask for a public review. Don't be afraid to ask for your internal customer satisfaction survey. And in our language, we really try to clarify that we have public reviews, you're posting about your experience to the world, and our internal customer satisfaction survey that we're not going to post the results, and the difference between the two. Because more often than not, we were finding that customers were mistaking the two when we were front-ending the customer satisfaction survey rather than reviews. And so making sure that they understand the difference and why we care. And then, of course, obviously ask for a review and respond to any resulting actions that you had as far as that person-to-person conversation. You have to respond to those manually, because we effectively contracted with that person. Okay, Mary, it was so great talking to you, and thank you so much. I'm really looking forward to seeing your review and your survey. Okay, well, now if they do it, we got to follow up with them. Ideally the same person who had the phone call follows up with that individual. Hey, thank you. It's great talking with you the other day. Really appreciate you following up with the survey response and the review. Thank you so much. Look forward to working with you again, whatever it is. But bringing the human element into all these great technological tools that we have at the end of the job is critical. And I'm the first to say that we're probably C students at it right now. We need to get better. As good as the numbers are, we have nowhere to go but up. We can get better.
We're a work in progress. I love that. And then, I was thinking about it too. We got to be careful when we're asking for Yelp reviews. Yelp reviews, of course, are a violation of their T&C.
Yep.
So sometimes we get really creative. I've seen locations that have T-shirts that say "I smile" or "I dance" for reviews, right? Things like that. Just silly things that get people's attention, but also remind the employee the impact of customer feedback. So sometimes you just got to get really creative. But yeah, just be careful. Don't ask for a Yelp review or put anywhere on a website, an email or a text, review us on Yelp, because that will get you in trouble with them.
Yep.
Good point.
If I could also add, this kind of comes from more of an aesthetic point of view, or from our line of business, but we also encourage, because it is probably the hardest, sometimes it's the most difficult task to finally get that review right. No news is good news. Most customers that if they had a bad experience might be more enticed to leave a bad review, right, versus a good. But I think it really depends and relies on the final touching points of the execution of that product or service. But we sometimes, what we try to do is get fun with it. And if obviously we read the customer right, because again, being a real business, real issues can occur. So we're not going to ask the customer that we just messed up on a shutter job, right? Hey, can you leave a review right now? Yay. But those customers that are left in our line of business, they sometimes are left in tears of joy, because the shutters alone will transform the entire look of their home without having to, again, break the bank. But we encourage them to share on social media, right? Like sharing photos, or, hey, so maybe trying to integrate it if you can, depending on what your business model is, to try to integrate that on social media and say, if you share a picture, we'll tag you back and this and that, and your review, we really rely on that. So just kind of amping that experience up, that review is like the final testimony. And if you could do us a favor, you love the work that we did today, we only ask that you leave us a review because that's the greatest joy of our day, right? Or whatever that looks like. So just being, again, as was mentioned earlier, to be authentic, but having fun with it and really being able to tie in the customer with that review and that experience. Sometimes it just amps up the joy and fun of it all.
Absolutely. Before we move on to the next section, there were some interesting questions that came in. Looks like maybe they're directed at Steve. The first question was, is Yelp even worth using?
Oh, yeah.
It says, they filter 90% of my reviews. That's what the question said.
Yeah, I think Sean made it clear that Yelp's by far a priority. I've had some businesses where they're convinced that they get the most customers from Yelp, even though the traffic is still higher from Google and other sources. So Yelp, and we've done some study. Yelp converts really well, even with that Meineke example I was talking about earlier. We have a page, on our site at Wiedemann.com. It's you can probably just search Wiedemann, how important are Yelp reviews in Google, and find the page. But we actually pulled some data and surveyed people and asked them the same question: would you still use Yelp if there weren't reviews? And then what I try to do is pull some data from different accounts, and Meineke was one of them, where I actually showed what the conversion rate was, and the conversion rate was much higher on Yelp. So I think it's critical, if you are a service business, if you're a brick and mortar, that you still pay attention to them. Businesses are definitely leaning toward getting more Google reviews now because they know that's where their traffic comes from. But a lot of their customers are still coming from Yelp. So I would not neglect that one, and I would add that to your tracker, as something that you are tracking, and run some tests. Hey, we're going to give Yelp a lot of love this month and see if we get anything back. And make sure you put those parameters on the website URL so that you can segment it and know which part is your Yelp paid ad versus your Yelp, organic. Keep those separate so that you can track it in the back end and see what's really performing for you. And if you're not getting the ROI that you're spending on advertising in there and the effort you're putting into Yelp, when you look at your analytics, then you can say, okay, well, we're gonna put more of our energy somewhere else. But I think you'll be surprised, and I think you'll see that conversion rate in Yelp, and you'll go, yeah, we gotta at least put 5% of our effort into that.
All right, excellent.
Good question.
Excellent. Yeah, excellent question. Okay, let's move on. There's some exciting questions coming through that will actually be addressed. So in this next section, so it's pretty clear. The case has been made that there's a connection between reputation and revenue. But the process of managing a reputation manually, especially across multiple locations, it's very challenging, very difficult to do. So I think all the folks on the call here are Birdeye customers. They've invested in the platform for various reasons. I'd love to hear a little bit more about your experience with Birdeye and the difference you've seen in your online reviews pre-Birdeye and post-Birdeye. And Marissa, I think we'll start with you. In particular, you had mentioned there were a lot of efficiencies that you've gained thanks to automation. Can you share a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so we've always believed in the power of reputation management. Again, being in this industry that's so has always been referral based for the most part. Now it's just putting it in a digital, platform, but we're also able to see those analytics and tell that story, right? So prior to Birdeye, we were using a different tool. And it was a little bit of a struggle just because a lot of the technology wasn't there. One of the major selling points for us to make that move was automation, but again, that expansion of communication through web chat. The web chat, once we were shown that feature, again, it was such a no-brainer. It's like, oh my gosh, now our teams that are already multitasking can do it more efficiently with web chat, and we're able to leverage web chat in the dashboard and kind of see the entire history of the conversation and kind of how that lead nurtures into a converted lead, right, and a sale. So it's not as choppy anymore. It's super easy with Birdeye, just because there's that cross functionality between the live dashboard on your desktop or through the mobile app, and depending on how you want to use it. So usually it's our admin and installers that are using the service, but our installers are going to use it a totally different way than our admins that are behind a desk and behind four walls all day. So it's really great to have that those expanded capabilities and really the customization for those professionals to use it in their way, and that it's easy for both of them to use it, where before installers, they had to have access. They had to have a different accessibility in the other app, and it was just really hard for them to try to toggle all that, where in this case with Birdeye, they're just able to send a link, and it's so easy for them, right? They're on their cell phones. We all know the apps take up a huge chunk of your memory and your Wi-Fi. So it's really nice to have that customization. I can already say that, well, no, never mind. I'm going to the next part. Sorry, go ahead.
Do we lose our moderator? I can tell you, I like Birdeye because it has the seller rating integration. I'm a click-through rate junkie, so by going to Google Ads and having seller ratings, one of the few platforms that offers that integration with Google Ads. Within about 4 weeks or so of setting up the seller rating integration in Google Ads, I'm seeing higher click-through rates. Sometimes really significant click-through rates, because now users can see user feedback in the actual ad itself, which has been a huge difference for click-through rate in ads, which plays into quality score, which plays into lower ad costs. So.
Excellent. And I'm back, folks. I was just having fun with the mute button, talking to myself over here. Still working on this online technology. That's great feedback, Stephen. And Marissa, I love the facts that you showed. Do you, Marissa, do you have any specific stats about what your review count looked like before and after Birdeye, or the impact on your ratings at all?
Yeah, it's been just tremendous. So our review count from last year has doubled. So we're up 83% in review counts, which I had to take a double look at what I was seeing, because again, we're so conditioned to getting these reviews anyway. But I think just with the ease of, and there's a lot of moving parts, right? The ease of the platform makes that so much more possible. And I think because of that, our teams are just more excited to get the reviews right. And it really is, it takes all moving parts. So we heard from George earlier how, if the service was down or the team was not motivated in a particular location, it was harder to get them motivated to obviously do the work and get that review as a result. So in this case, we've had managers that are extremely excited to make this program work within their four walls. And sometimes that might be incentivizing the team and getting them excited and saying, hey, we're going to have a contest this week or this month. Whoever gets the most reviews, and then there's a tier of incentives and prizes and whatnot. And that really we rely on our installers mostly to get those reviews. So if anyone knows what that business model looks like, so most of our installers speak Spanish or a different language. So to be in that position of, you're the installer, you got to make sure this is done right, and when it is, get that review. Sometimes they don't feel like it's their place to get the review. So we try to encourage them that, hey, this is an equal opportunity, and you're actually making the biggest difference and impact in our customers' lives, because you're the one who delivers the finished product, right? So we've really been able to harness and work through those challenges within the past couple of years, especially since having Birdeye, and the results show. It's amazing. Obviously, the pandemic, we saw a big jump there with people converting their den or whatever guest room into a home office. So there was a lot more activity in that regard. But we've even jumped from a 4.8 average to 4.9. So we're just excited that our teams are becoming more familiar with the platform, and the more features that are added and the more our teams become more familiarized, it makes it so seamless to be able to use Birdeye as their one-stop shop hub for their day-to-day business. And, you know, if they're answering web chats and then they're reminding, oh, I've got to, you know, if the installer didn't get that review, I need to remind myself to send that person an inbox message or that customer an inbox message, hey, don't forget to leave a review, whatever. And then the automation process with, you know, having drip campaigns and stuff like that through email. There's just so many options to make this happen on a day-to-day basis, and it's awesome. We love it.
That's excellent. You know, there was a question that came in from chat asking about the best line of communication when asking a customer to leave a review. And I wanted to toss that over to George because I think you had some metrics to share about the impact of Birdeye and how you're requesting reviews.
Yes, sure. So for years, we've been asking for reviews. The review request through Birdeye would go out through email only. And we've been a Birdeye customer for 3 years. And after a while, we were starting to work at Sevlaser. I was like, you know, we're getting good reviews and the reputation is great. What else can we do? You know, how can we get more reviews? And I started, you know, going through the dashboard and trying to see what features we have on Birdeye that we're not using. And I'm like, wow, we're just using email. How about we try text message? And I was just surprised why nobody thought of it before me. You know, for 3 years it's been going out through email only. And I brought out to the partners and they said, well, you know, we've been kind of afraid, what if we get negative reviews? And I was like, well, if we're not getting that many negative reviews through email, it's going to be the same case scenario if we ask them through text message. You know, it will just going to be, the numbers are just going to be more. We're going to get a lot more good reviews and just some bad reviews too. Like proportion and like the ratio is going to be the same basically, but just multiplied. They were like, okay, try it. So we tried, and we started in May of this year, so 2-3 months ago. And in the last 3 months, each month we've had 3 times more reviews than any month before that. Like the whole entire year before that, each month, you know, compared to the monthly count of reviews we would get, we got 3 times more each of these months, this last 3 months. And the review rating even went up. We went up from like 4.67 to 4.78, like a 0.1, 0.2, which is pretty great too. So the test went great. Yeah.
That's amazing. Wow, 3 times. That's significant. Sean, I'm curious, how has your experience with Birdeye affected your reputation, your ability to get reviews? And I think you had some stats on the channels that you use as well, right?
Yeah, I'm actually in the process of putting together quite a few numbers for a webinar I'm doing for our franchisees next week to kind of talk about where we've been, where we're at, and what we really need to do to continue to leverage this great tool and continue to leverage what is a great online reputation. We have nowhere to go but up. We can continue to get better. It's all about continuous improvement. In early 2021, we were requesting reviews only by email. So at the conclusion of the job, we had an email that went out. It had links to our review sites. It also had links to our sort of internally produced, internally curated customer satisfaction survey. But even with that survey being responded to, we had no objective net promoter calculation in spite of that survey, because it's all about asking the right question the right way, right? When it came to managing maps and listings, there were about 5,000 siloed listings that we had to manage for our franchise network if we managed them at all. Obviously, we focused on GMB, we focused on Facebook, we focused on Yelp. But there's a whole lot of other ones that we can manage automatically in Birdeye that was huge. I'm sure Steve would acknowledge that having all those listings in alignment and in parity is good for SEO. So that was one huge thing we got. When we started with Birdeye back in January 2021, we set automations for our surveys and reviews to go out at the same time. We also set up a bunch of automated responses because we knew our franchise users weren't going to jump in and do something that they weren't doing already. So we needed to get those response rates up to the reviews, and then ultimately encouraging them to go in and do stuff manually as well. And then, of course, at that time, we added SMS to the mix. When we started, it was interesting because our response rates were almost in parity. Like email, we had a 64% open, 9% click-through. SMS was only 15% open, but it had a 10% click-through ratio. So that was when we first kind of got going. Since we started with Birdeye in early 2021, we've had a 94% increase in the total number of reviews. We've seen our aggregate score go from 4.2 to 4.4. So not only is the volume going up, but the quality of the reviews is going up. It's not just about the platform. Obviously, our franchisees and their teams are doing a great job. Through and post-COVID, we've had record years. And so it speaks a lot to our teams creating trust in the home. From a customer satisfaction survey, that one that we kind of really weren't taking great care of, we've had nearly 19,000 responses. It's about 8 times the response rate that we had before on our old survey. Our net promoter, it was 80.2 since we started with Birdeye. Year to date, we're 82.1.
82?
82.1 year to date, 2022.
I've never heard of an NPS.
Not in home services. No, I think the average is like 42. So the NPS is really important for us. Obviously, we asked some experiential questions that we're going to begin to get some rewards and recognition for team members in the field, but that's huge. Hugely proud of that number, and I'm really trying to educate our franchisees on just how cool that is, and how important it is to watch that. In addition to the public affirmation that we have out there, NPS is a great measurement. Recently, we've made some changes. We did decouple our customer satisfaction survey and our reviews because, again, we were having some confusion for the franchises that were doing really good at that post-job follow-up. And when they would ask for a review, the customer, well, I already gave you one. Well, no, we haven't sent it yet. Or they didn't get to that end of the survey where we then provide the links to we only links to GMB and to Facebook. We don't want to neutralize those anymore by adding a third. By decoupling that, of course, we saw a decrease in our survey responses, but we've seen a radical increase in the number of reviews that we are receiving. 70%, in fact. It's only been about 30 days, but we've seen a 70% uptick in the number of reviews coming through. And that SMS click-through rate that was 10% is now 17%. So now we're getting more reviews. We're getting more reviews via SMS, which is a good thing. We've recently launched Birdeye Referrals. Too early to tell, but seems like a great product. We are in the process of rolling out Birdeye Mass SMS. Not a whole lot of overt marketing. It's going to be more procedural things like, hey, we've got an appointment scheduled, or following up on estimates, because in home services, we're notorious for going to that next paid lead instead of following up on the one we ran yesterday. So we'll be getting that in play. And we're driving the Birdeye messaging as the key communication tool before, during, and after the job, not just after it. And that's the whole focal point to that webinar I'm giving next week. As soon as somebody becomes a contact, as an example, in our system, they are moved over to Birdeye with no implied action, but they are there now for things like quick send or ad hoc messaging that the office teams can use to communicate with those customers, versus like sending SMS messages from the office manager's phone, which is what they were doing before. So all great stuff. We couldn't have done what we're doing right now. We couldn't be measuring the way we're doing without the Birdeye tools. I'm an army of one, and I manage the entire program along with like 19 other verticals in the tech stack. And I don't think it would happen if we didn't have Birdeye as a tool. So,
wow. I'm blushing on behalf of the company. That was glowing.
Yeah. You can send my commission check later. I'm just kidding.
Yeah. It's amazing. I mean, it's clear that every single one of you has, in conjunction with the amazing folks on your team, really done a fantastic job of leveraging all the tools that Birdeye provides, and using them to enhance your online reputation and get found and engage with customers. It's incredible. And it really ties into what's happening in the market. It just shows how important that is. That is the end of our planned, discussion here. But I would hate to leave all these brilliant marketing brains untapped. So if you have any questions, please feel free to chat them in. I see one from the very beginning of the conversation that I'll post to Steve here, and anyone else that has a thought. How are you tracking attribution of organic search traffic from Google Business Profile to conversions or leads? So if anyone
Well,
has
I'd mentioned using parameters. It's a great question, and I know Google Analytics is changing with the new GA4, but GA4's got so many cool tools and integrations, and I know it uses events a lot more heavily, but it's such an elastic platform now. If you just spend a day, there's a YouTube channel called Measure School, and Julian there, who runs Measure School, teaches you from beginning to end how to acclimate yourself to GA4 and how to transition from Google Universal Analytics to GA4. It's totally worth it. It's one day out of your life, and you'll have dropped Universal and you'll have moved on to GA4, and you won't be grumbling like a lot of other SEOs and digital marketers are, because you're like, wow, there's so much more than I realized. Yeah, I lose a little bit of my search term data and whatever, but you can still track using UTM codes. You can still isolate your campaigns. So just by adding a simple little UTM equals campaign underscore local, right? Or medium equals organic, but campaign is local, or campaign is Google Maps, allows you to basically segment in analytics what's coming in specifically from web search and what's coming in from your organic Google Map rankings. The attribution piece of it is something that you'll have to tie in with your own reporting. You can use Google Data Studio. There's some great articles out there. If you do attribution modeling, Google Data Studio gives you several different ways that you can play around with trying to connect where did they come from first, where did they go after, understand your demographic a little bit better. But in terms of segmentation, just using that simple little UTM parameter on your URLs can make all the difference in being able to understand what came from what. And then using an attribution model in GA4 or in Google Data Studio, which is a little bit easier to create better pictures and better visuals, can be the way to do that. And so start with YouTube, use that Measure School, go into their videos, use terms like transfer from Universal to GA4, use terms like Google Maps attribution, and you'll find all sorts of really good tutorials that'll walk you through step by step.
Fantastic. It's great. Looks like we have one last question. Is it a good idea to copy positive reviews from one review site to another review site?
I wouldn't.
Nope.
I think it's a bad idea because it's, I don't know. For me, it feels like it's not as authentic, right? And if the user ever did see their own review there, they might say, "Hey, I didn't leave you a review there. I hate Yelp. Why would I use Yelp?" Or I don't know. I think just being organic and focusing on just the quality of what you're doing, you're not going to need to copy from one to another because the other's going to get enough traction. We already had a quote earlier. My favorite quote is from Jim Rohn. And Jim Rohn says that you don't have to do extraordinary things to be successful. You only have to do ordinary things extraordinarily well. And that's all we have to do. For local SEO, we have to focus on making sure our data is accurate, using a platform like Birdeye as a single source of truth, making sure our location pages are more helpful than our competitors, maybe even with sub-pages that have a sub-page for reviews, a sub-page for delivery or takeout if we're in restaurant and food, maybe a page for oil change if you're an auto repair shop, and then making sure every month we're finding new places to get our business found and get that citation out there so that Google finds it. And lastly, in invoking a program that allows us to amplify our reviews and knowing what the top competitors' scores are. What's your top competitor doing in terms of the quality, quantity, and velocity of their reviews so that we know what the threshold is that we need to beat. Pay attention to those 4 areas every month. Have a 30-minute meeting to talk about those 4 areas every month with all stakeholders. Set some goals and some KPIs for the year, and then just work on nurturing, water and sunlight with those 4 pillars that we talked about.
Incredible. Well, on the topic of doing ordinary things extraordinarily well, I want to extend a sincere thank you to every single one of you for the amazing job you did today in educating our attendees and sharing your thoughts. You were all so good at what you do, so generous in sharing your information. So thank you. We appreciate it so much. And for those of you who've joined us, we really appreciate you've taken that you've taken the time to participate in the conversation today. If you think of other questions in the future, please reach out and let us know, and we'd be happy to help. But that concludes our content for today. Before you go, please register for part 2 of our masterclass series. It's called Reviews to Revenue, Reputation Management 101. So if you have questions about best practices, it's a great time for you to come. You'll learn the nuts and bolts of developing an online reputation, ranking higher on Google, and standing out above the competition. You can email us your additional questions at events@birdeye.com. And again, thank you so much, Marissa, George, Sean, and Steve, for your time. It was such a pleasure. We will make a recording of this session available, and you will receive an email with a link as well. So thank you all so much. Have a wonderful day, a wonderful weekend, and we will see you next time.
Thank you.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
team.
Pleasure.
Have a great day.